Hello. Hello. You are in the den of the Grey Waste, and I am your host, Grey Waste Tim. With me, as always, is it's Damon. But I don't think he wants to. You gonna stick around? Yeah, you'll stick around. So, yes, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. We are going to do a live reading of The Soiled Knight, which is the lone Arys Oakheart POV chapter from A Feast for Crows. It's kind of an outlier chapter. Arys gets one POV, and then the next time we see him, he dies, killed by another guy who hardly gets any POVs, that being Arys Oakheart, who only has two. He gets one in Feast and one in Dance. Arys is like our silent watcher who gives us a big insight into the Dornish plot. And with Arys, we get... Hi, Damon. With Arys, we get an intersection because Arys is another for the one chapter he does get. He is an eye on what's happening in Dorne, but he's also his chapter. It's like a big lore dump almost of Kingsguard history and a lot of Blackfyre stuff. And the reason why I'm doing this is it started with the Dangerous Oranges video where I talked about The Godfather and the influence that Coppola's film has had on the Dornish plot, because George is a huge film buff on top of being a music buff and a literature buff and a history buff. And the other thing is that the Dornish plot and the Blackfyre plot, they link up in a lot of ways, and that'll culminate in wins when Arianne is sent off to court Fagon, who may or may not, but given how much Blackfyre comes up, heavily may. I'm leaning towards him being a Blackfyre, just because of how much it comes up. If not in the Tyrion chapters, which we're going to go back to. Again, we're hopping back and forth next. So we'll go from the Dorne plot back to Tyrion, back to Dorne plot, back to Tyrion, and so on and so forth with Dance. And you'll see how the Dornish and the Blackfyre stuff all really do, like, eventually the crossroads come back and form here. And form one road, which is when Arianne goes off to meet Fagon, which we get our sample chapter of. We get a sample wins chapter of Arianne with the Golden Company. But yeah, like here in the Arys Oakheart chapter, it does come up. Aemon the Dragonknight and the story of Terrence Toyne and things like that. And we'll get into that. And then Arys Oakheart is also interesting because of, as the title would imply, he is symbolically a green man and an other. And as you know, I've been doing a lot of streams with David Lightbringer, so I feel like I'm getting and the more I talk with Dave and the more streams I do, I feel like I'm getting a better grip on all of this symbolism for my own channel. And so Arys Oakheart is a green man who dons a white cloak. So he is a symbolic green man, a symbolic child of the forest, and a symbolic other. These are the things that George is kind of leaving us the breadcrumb trail to. Anytime we have a house whose sigil is some kind of a tree, any kind of tree person is more than likely we're supposed to be looking for green man symbolism or child of the forest symbolism. But then, of course, the white cloak of the Kingsguard makes him a symbolic other. The Kingsguard are like others working for a solar king in the way that others would work for what we would see as Night's King, like whether that be the Night's King of the book, who may be out there, Night's King more formally of the show, but because the Targaryens being Solar Kings, being Dragon Kings, and then even Robert Baratheon taking up that mantle as a Summer King, as a green harvest king, a fertility god figure, the Cernunnos thing. The Kingsguard have always been like the sun version of others to a Sun King, Solar King, Dragon King figure. So yeah, so again, Arys Oakheart donning the white cloak is like a green man turning into an other, which may be what George has in mind for what the others truly are. I do like Dave's idea of the others being like evicted green men, the spirits of green men or children or whomever who were pushed out of the weirwood net by the corruption of an evil Azor Ahai, and now they want back, but Azor Ahai is imposing squatters' rights, and he needs to be kicked out of the weirwood net and give it back to the others. So Arys takes on all of this, and of course he is being an Oakheart, he is a member of a Marcher Lord family, which historically have warred against the Dornish. Yet here he is in Dorne, the sworn sword to Princess Myrcella, but he has fallen in love with a Dornish woman, that being Arianne Martell. So this whole idea of otherization and reconciliation by having a Marcher Lord come into Dorne and have a romantic affair with a Dornish woman is sort of a breaking down of barriers of sorts, but also there is the shame and Tristan involved because he is a member of the Kingsguard. He is not supposed to be having, in his view, he's not supposed to be having love affairs. He's not supposed to be having sex. He's not supposed to. I will hold no lands and father no children. The same oaths that the Night's Watch take. And then Arianne's like, well, I'm drinking my moon tea, so we ain't going to have kids. And here in Dorne, there's nothing wrong with you being a paramour, but he still feels like it's a shame. So then it brings up this whole Criston Cole aspect to it. And it's like you can almost imagine Arys Oakheart looking at Arianne and saying, well, why don't we go to Yee and sell oranges the way that Criston Cole does to Rhaenyra in House of the Dragon? But for her to look at him and go, bitch, please, I'm a princess of Dorne, just like Rhaenyra can look at Criston Cole and say, bitch, please, I'm heir to the throne. I'm not going to go sell your damn oranges in Yee. Like, your honor is yours. Like, you feel it's soiled, but I'm not gonna lower myself to save face for you because you're feeling bad about things that you did. So I mean, that's what I say. Like, it's for a one chapter character, there actually is quite a lot to unpack here. When we really get into it. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna read The Soiled Knight, and we're gonna try and unpack all of this, both the symbolism, the history, and the lore, and just show like how much world building George is packing into just a few pages. So we're gonna go straight into it. Oh, and then before we start, Super chats are now enabled. There's also a link to my paypal.me. It is in the video info. Super chats, PayPals, they're not required, but they are appreciated, especially if you have a question you really want to get out or you just want to support the channel. Those are just, like I said, I consider them a tip jar, but I'm just happy to read these stories out loud. That's all I really want to do. I just want to read and apply voices to as many characters as I can and talk about these stories. But if there's something you want to get out there, or again, you just want to support the channel or just give me or just thank me monetarily, very much appreciated. I'm always humbled by those. All right. So now we will go into The Soiled Knight. The night was unseasonably cool, even for autumn. A brisk, wet wind was swirling down the alley, stirring up the day's dust. A north wind and full of chill. So this is one of those symbolic things because we are talking Dorne, which is mostly desert. Oh, and we got a super chat just from Kimberly Fay, $2. Thanks, Tim. Oh, thank you, Kimber. Thank you. So, anyway, Yeah, so a north wind and full of chill. Okay, so George tends to do this a lot with Dorne because since Dorne is a very dry, arid place, a desert place that's usually very sunny, he always has to insert like these substitutions for for things like the others. So to say like a north wind full of chill is making you think of the north, even though we're down here in Dorne. And so again, it's like that's why Arya Hota as the Silent Watcher is such an interesting character, and of course Arys Oakheart being a symbolic other, because you're putting places for the others to put others in the desert, which would be a place where you wouldn't expect them because snowmen would melt down here. You're not going to get any snow. And the idea of like, and if the others were to, when the others invade, like they got to get further than the north. I suspect at least to the Riverlands, at least to Harrenhal, to the God's Eye. But the idea of the others making it so far south, right, that they make it to Dorne, at that point you should just be like, okay, all hope is lost at this point. if they've frozen the roads that much. So Sir Arys Oakheart pulled up his hood to cover his face. It would not do for him to be recognized. A fortnight passed, a traitor had been butchered in the Shadow City, a harmless man who'd come to Dorne for fruit and found death instead of dates. Now, we're talking dates the fruit, but the other kind of dates, it's been said in the Arya Hota chapter when that the sex workers of Dorne are coupling with any man free of charge. So you're looking for that kind of date, honey, that you can find, but he's looking for the fruit dates. His only crime was being from King's Landing. And yes, this is to show like we are coming off the heels of the death of Oberyn Martell. And you just want to highlight like we're not going to see Oberyn because he's dead, but he's here in spirit. Drinking Oberyn wheat ale, unleash the power of the sun. I'm not actually going to dump any on my floor, but I would pour one out for Oberyn. For Oberyn Martell. But yeah, Dorne is pissed at the moment, and you can cut the tension with a knife, and everyone's just getting angrier and angrier and angrier. So they're angry at Oberyn's death. They're angry at Dorne Martell's seeming lack of initiative, his lack of movement. That is why the Sand Snakes is trying to push him towards action. That is why Arianne Martell is starting to concoct her own schemes, which we'll see here. The seed is planted for what Arianne will try and do in her POV chapter when we get to the Queenmaker. Yes, Damon, you have some input? I think one of your guys gets mentioned here, Damon. But yeah, so Dorne is it's a powder keg right now, and it's just looking for a spark. And so a Kingsguard member like Arys Oakheart being recognized out in the open, if he were to don his white cloak, would at this point just be asking for trouble. And then couple that with Arys Oakheart being a Marcher Lord, the Oakheart's already being seen as a sort of combatant, this enemy of Dorne through the Marcher Lord history, because it's not that old. Dorne's the newest kingdom. It's only been incorporated in for a few generations, so a lot of those wounds are still fresh here. So the mob would find a sterner foe in me. He would almost have welcomed an attack. His hand drifted down to brush lightly over the hilt on the longsword that hung half-hidden amongst the folds of his layered linen robes, the outer with its turquoise stripes and rows of golden suns, and the lighter orange one beneath. And that should be our first sign that something bad's going to happen, because he's wearing orange. The Dornish garb was comfortable, but his father would have been aghast had he lived to see his son so dressed. He was a man of the Reach, and the Dornish were his ancient foes, as the tapestries at Old Oak bore witness. Arys only had to close his eyes to see them still. Lord Edgarin, the open-handed, seated in splendor with the heads of 100 Dornish men piled around his feet. Okay, so that right there. So another thing of these substitutions, oak trees are used as stand-ins for weirwoods in places where weirwoods don't normally grow. And here we have this Lord Edgarin. So that Ed name, if we think of like the naming schemes of House Stark and House Dane, the whole Ed, El, Edric, Eddard, Elric naming conventions, and here we're given this Lord Edgarin of Old Oak. So again, this is like a Northman in a spot where a Northman should not be. It's that Ed suffix, the Old Oak, and he is seated in splendor with heads of 100 Dornish men piled around his feet. It is very Knights King symbolic right there, but with all of these substitutions to make it make sense for in such a southern area. So the three leaves in the prince's past, pierced by Dornish spears, Alistair sounding his war horn with his last breath. Sir Olivar, the green oak, all in white, dying at the side of the young dragon. Dorne is no fit place for any Oakheart. So another big lore dump. Which is things I guess we could expect to see if we ever get Fire and Blood Part 2. The young dragon is referring to Daeron the First, and he tries to lead a war of conquest against the Dornish in the years following the Dance of the Dragons. And it's seen as folly by some because you remember back to Aegon the Conqueror, and it's like you guys couldn't take Dorne when you had dragons, and now you're trying to do it without. But we get this Sir Oliver, so an Oakheart who also would have been a Kingsguard to Daeron in his time. So again, this is even the young dragon leading the War of Conquest has a green man in a white cloak on his side, which is a symbolic way of saying a dragon with both with others and with tree people fighting for him. So we'll go back. Even before Prince Oberyn had died, the Nightbit had been ill at ease whenever he left the grounds of Sunspear to walk the alleys of the Shadow City. He could feel eyes upon him everywhere he went, small black Dornish eyes regarding him with thinly veiled hostility. The shopkeepers did their best to cheat him at every turn, and sometimes he wondered whether the taverners were spitting in his drinks. Once a group of ragged boys began pelting him with stones until he drew his sword and ran them off. The Red Viper's death had inflamed the Dornish even more, though the streets had quieted a bit since Prince Doran had confined the Sand Snakes to a tower. Even so, to wear his white cloak openly in the Shadow City, would be asking for attack. He had brought 3 with him, 2 of wool, 1 light and 1 heavy, the third of fine white silk. He felt naked without one hanging from his shoulders. So I'll catch the whole thing. Yep, if you can't stay, then I'll always appreciate watches on the replay afterwards. Better naked than dead, he told himself. I am a king's guard. Oh wait, hold on. I should try and make a even though this is internal dialogue and not actually speaking, I should still try and make a voice for Arys Oakheart, a voice for Arys Oakheart. He's kind of a himbo, to be honest. Like a sad himbo, of a depressed himbo. That's sad Patrick Warburton. Sad Patrick Warburton. Hey Peter, can I borrow your egg beater? Hey Peter, can I borrow your egg beater? Better naked than dead. No, that just makes him sound slow. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. I am a Kingsguard still, even uncloaked. She must respect that. I must make her understand. He should never have let himself be drawn into this, but the singer said that love can make a fool of any man. Sunspear's Shadow City oft seemed deserted in the heat of the day, when only buzzing flies moved down the dusty streets. But once evening fell, the same streets came to life. Sir Arys heard faint music drifting through lurid windows as he passed below, and somewhere finger drums were beating out the quick rhythm of a spear dance, giving the night a pulse. Where 3 alleys met beneath the second of the winding walls, a pillow girl called down from a balcony. She was dressed in jewels and oil. He took a look at her, hunched his shoulders, and pushed on into the teeth of the wind. We men are so weak. Our bodies betray even the noblest of us. He thought of King Baelor the Blessed, who would fast to the point of fainting to tame the lusts that shamed him. Must he do the same? And yes, that would be, so Baelor the Blessed, the king following the young dragon, his younger brother, because Daeron dies without sons. He dies without any children because he dies at age 18. His brother Baelor the Blessed takes over, and he locks all of his sisters in the maiden vault so that he would not be tempted by their lusts. And we get a great line from Tyrion later on of, well, Tyrion, if he had just fucked his wife and done his duty, he would have saved us a whole lot of trouble. So a short man stood in an arched doorway, grilling chunks of snake over a brazier, turning them with wooden tongs as they crisp. So that's like the 7 snakes in the stew that comes in the next Arys Oakheart chapter. The idea of snakes being grilled, roasted, eaten, it just really lays down the line of most, if not, maybe not all the sand snakes, maybe not the little ones who are at the water gardens, but definitely the older ones. Tyene, Lady Nym, Obara, they're set for they've been set up for death. I can't see any way. I can't see any way of them surviving to the end of the story. The pungent smell of his sauces brought tears to the knight's eyes. The best snake sauce had a drop of venom in it, he had heard, along with mustard seeds and dragon peppers. And again, that stew that Arys Oakheart can't taste in his next chapter is made with snakes, venom in the sauce, dragon peppers, and blood oranges. So that's where we really, like, again, it just hammers it home of everyone in this room is gonna die. Shut up, you're all gonna die. Like that really is it. And we're seeing it again here. And then the dragon peppers are like that cherry on top, because already we're seeing the Fagon story being weaved in before we even meet Fagon. Like, even if George didn't think of the Blackfyre stuff or even the whole Fagon thing, it at least goes to show that eventually the Dornish storyline was always going to intersect with dragons, not just with Quentin, but with symbolic dragons as well. Myrcella had taken to Dornish food as quick as she had to her Dornish prince, and from time to time Sir Arys would try a dish or two to please her. The food seared his mouth and made him gasp for wine, and burned even worse coming out than it did going in. His little princess loved it, though. So, we never really get much of Myrcella, but we do get, but again, George packing as much information in as few lines as he can, we do get an idea of her, of what she is like, and she seems like an open-minded girl. She actually comes to like Trystane. It becomes one of those like rare moments where an arranged marriage works out. They're very close in age. Trystane is 13, Myrcella is 11. So it's young love. She definitely has a crush on him, and it is a childhood crush. It's cute in that way. It just makes it so much more tragic to know that somewhere, some way, Myrcella is going to die, because all of Cersei's children are fated to die. And again, that is why I brought up the idea of Trystane Martell being like Anthony Corleone when I did the whole Godfather aspect, that Doran Martell is Michael Corleone. Trystane being set up to be the Anthony of that story because of Myrcella's death. Like, we know that Myrcella is going to die. We don't know how she's going to die, but more than likely it's going to be whatever causes her death is probably going to be wrapped up in Doran Martell's plans, which may make may make Trystane look at his father in a different light and estrange them the way that Anthony Corleone is estranged from Michael Corleone by the end of the final Godfather film. So that's the setup. But Myrcella's very outgoing. She's taken to Dornish life. She's assimilating well. And it gives you this tiny bit of hope that maybe you want things to work out for these kids, because it's young love. They reciprocate. They're close in age. Like, it seems like it's going to be a success, but you just know something is going to tear it apart. There's always the dagger. The dagger is just hanging above Myrcella's head every page that she's on, and it's just, when is it going to drop? And it's like, George, you monster! Why do you do this to us? And Myrcella and it's Shireen too. It's like, Mike, these are good kids, George. Why? These are good kids. And Tommen too. These are good kids. It is the hope just being ripped away. So his little princess loved it though, and I get it too. Just go before story. I've talked about, I'm Irish and German, which makes me a potato. So it wasn't until later in life, like when I got to try like true spice, because I'm from some of the bland cooking cultures. And I know to know that I like spice too. I like spice with taste. Like, ghost peppers are not for me, just because ghost peppers are just like, that just seems like heat for the sake of heat. But scorpion peppers are good because it's heat, but there's still flavor and kick to it. And I know I've come to love like curries and chilies and all that kind of stuff. But so I'm with Myrcella on this. I probably would really enjoy Dornish food. He had left her in her chambers, bent over a gaming table opposite Princess Trystane, pushing ornate pieces across squares of jade and cornelian and lapis lazuli. Myrcella's full lips had been slightly parted, her green eyes narrowed with concentration. Savas, the game was called. It had come to the Planky town on a trading galley from Volantis, and the orphans had spread it up and down the Greenblood. The Dornish court was mad for it. Sir Arys just found it maddening. There were 10 different pieces, each with its own attributes and powers, and the board would change from game to game, depending on how the players arrayed their home squares. Prince Trystane had taken to the game at once, and Myrcella had learned it so she could play with him. She was not quite 1 in 10, her betrothed 3 in 10. Even so, she had been winning more often than not of late. Trystane did not seem to mind. The two children could not have looked more different. Him with his olive skin and straight black hair. Her pale as milk with a mop of golden curls, light and dark, like Queen Cersei and King Robert. He prayed Myrcella would find more joy in her Dornish boy than her mother had found with her Stormlord. Again, it just sets you up, right? These are good kids, nice kids. They're playing a game. Trystane loves the game. Myrcella learns it just so that she could play it with him. And she's beating him, but he doesn't have a problem with it. He's probably just more like, hey, I'm losing, but I'm still getting to play the game. And that's what matters. Is right? Like, these seem like again, the rare moments of an arranged marriage where it actually seems like it would be a success. But you just know that something bad's gonna happen. it made him feel and then Arys Oakheart again being kind of the himbo, whereas he doesn't get Savas at all. Savas is it's the chess equivalent. We think of Doran Martell playing 4D chess with his schemes and machinations. Same with Littlefinger and Varys. Whereas Arys Oakheart seems like a guy where checkers would probably be above and beyond him. So a game like as intricate as Savas or chess is going to go way over this man's head. He's like, I'm made for fighting swords, not making words. You want a guy that fights good, you don't call Arys Oakheart because he gets killed the time he has to really fight. It made him feel uneasy to leave her, though she should be safe enough within the castle. There were only 2 doors that gave access to Myrcella's chambers in the Tower of the Sun, and Sir Arys kept 2 men on each. Lannister household guards, men who had come with them from King's Landing, battle-tested, tough and loyal to the bone. Myrcella had her maids and Septon Eglenton as well, and Prince Trystane was attended by his sworn sword, Sir Gascon of the Green Blood. No one will trouble her, he told himself, and in a fortnight we shall be safely away. Sir Gascon. I wonder if he's large, as big as a barge, and how many eggs he's eating. Prince Doran had promised as much, though Arys had been shocked to see how aged and infirm the Dornish prince appeared. He did not doubt the prince's words. I'm sorry I could not see you until now, or meet Princess Myrcella, Martell had said when Arys was admitted to his solar. Get used to the bad Spanish accent, because it's going to come up a lot when read these Dornish chapters. I'll read what once it's re-uploaded. Thank you. Oh, greetings from Uruguay. Oh, thank you, Creed Evolution. I didn't know I was reaching that far. All right, Uruguay. Yeah, anyone else? If you're from outside, if you're from outside the U.S., please let me know. I'm always interested in hearing where people are from and how far this is getting, since I'm mainly picking up a lot of Dave's audience, but I know that can be pretty far reaching at times. So, but I trust that my daughter Arianne has made you welcome here in Dorne, sir. She has, my prince, he'd answered, and prayed that no blush would dare betray him. Okay, I think that works for Arys Oakheart. It's kind of like, ye gods. Ours is a harsh land, and poor, yet not without its beauties. It grieves us that you have seen no more of Dorne than Sunspear, but I fear that neither you nor your princess will be safe beyond these walls. We Dornish are a hot-blooded people, quick to anger and slow to forgive. It would gladden my heart if I could assure you that the Sand Snakes were alone in wanting war, but I will not tell you lies, sir. You have heard my small folk in the streets, crying out for me to call my spears. Half my lords agree with them, I fear. And you, my prince? The knight had dared to ask. My mother taught me long ago that only madmen fight wars they cannot win. If the bluntness of the question had offended him, Prince Doran hid it well. Yet this peace is fragile as your princess. Only a beast would harm a little girl. Unhand her, Dan Backslide! Unhand her, Dan Backslide! Hey, we're getting into a rut here. My sister Elia had a little girl as well. Her name was Rhaenys. She was a princess too. The prince sighed. Those who would plunge a knife into Princess Myrcella do not bear her any malice. No more than Sir Amory Lorch did when he killed Rhaenys, if indeed he did. They seek only to force my hand. For if Myrcella should be slain in Dorne whilst under my protection, who would believe my denials? I guess I probably should start. Why, somebody starting trouble in here? London, Wales, Free Palestine. Yeah, that's. If it gets too out of hand, I'll see. But yeah, I definitely do need to start. I need to appoint people with the hammer. That's something to put a pin in that right now. But you have fans from Uruguay to Sweden to Alaska. Oh, nice. Yeah. Another reason why I'm doing this chapter is because I'm not going to be with Dave again tomorrow. I'm going to a concert in Philly. I'm going down to Philly to see Bad Religion and Social Distortion. But I know that Dave wants to do he said he wants to do the Queenmaker chapter, which I believe is the next Dornish Centerpoint chapter after this one. So I don't think Dave's here right now, but Dave, if you're watching this, I think we need to get on that. Maybe when I come back. Thrashing out hardcore punk shows. You know the funny thing is, it's actually a Mother's Day gift. Okay, so I'll just bring it back to me. So again, just a little bit of personal info. My parents are big music heads, just like Dave's a big music head, and just like George is a big music head. But Daddy is a prog rocker, and Mama is a punk. My dad is very much into like Pink Floyd, King Crimson, Moody Blues. In fact, my name, Tim, I'm named Timothy after the song Legend of a Mind by the Moody Blues, which is about Timothy Leary, a man who told a whole generation of people to tune in, turn on, drop out, basically saying drop acid and drop out of school. That's who I'm named after. Okay. But my dad just really liked the song. So he's like, we're naming that kid Tim. And then my mom's more of a punk. She's like the Clash, the Ramones, Sex Pistols, and Social Distortion. Specifically, Mike Ness. She loves Mike Ness. She's got such a fangirl crush on Mike Ness. So we're going to see, but she's never seen them live. And we were going to go last year, but Mike Ness had throat cancer. So he was diagnosed with throat cancer, but he did treatment, and they rescheduled the tour. It's back on. This will be his first show since recovery. If his voice is, I'm going to give him a mulligan if he sounds off, but Mike Ness already has a pretty raspy voice, so could still work in his favor. But yeah, I'm taking her. That's her Mother's Day gift, is to go see Social Distortion live, so that she can go see. Her crush perform. But yeah, I mean, I like Social Distortion and Bad Religion too, but those are bands that have been around longer than I've been alive. So it sounds like more dad punk rock than anything, but I enjoy it too. But my parents' musical tastes they've had a big influence on my musical taste, because I'm into, I guess, more modern punk band. Like I said, I really do like Social Distortion and Bad Religion. For me, like my go-tos are more like the Menzingers, Violent Soho, Bouncing Souls, that kind of stuff like that. And also I listen to a lot of metal, like very eclectic playlist that's going on in my car. But yeah, so won't be with Dave tomorrow. Going to see Bad Religion and Social Distortion. Maybe the Sunday following, which is Mother's Day. But yeah, I'm going to run it by Dave. I think if you want to do the Queenmaker, I'm going to highly suggest we get to that, because I'm coming up on these Dornish plots, and it would be the next chapter chronologically for me to do would be the Queenmaker. But probably for my next stream on my channel will be hopping back over to Tyrion to get back on the Blackfyre wagon. Then we'll hop back to Dorne, and so on and so forth again, because those roads link back up. So let's get back to the story. Where did I leave off? Okay, so no one shall ever harm Myrcella. No. Oh, and then for Amory Lorch, it's like Doran Martell says, like, he bears her no ill will, but it's like, when he killed Rhaenys, he stabbed her over 20 times. And his excuse for it was that she kicked him. So you got to, like, remember, this is a grown man who stabbed a 4-year-old girl 20 times because she kicked him. You know, he feared for his life. What else was he supposed? A 4-year-old girl kicked me. How else could I respond but to, you know, empty my entire clip into her? I feared for cops. I feared for my life. Oh, sad. Now I feel sad. Too dark, too real. A noble vow, said Doran Martell with a faint smile. But you are only one man, sir. I had hoped that imprisoning my headstrong nieces would help to calm the waters, but all we've done is drive the roaches back beneath the rushes. Every night I hear them whispering and sharpening their knives. He is afraid, Sir Arys realized then. Look, his hand is shaking. The Prince of Dorne is terrified. Words failed him. My apologies, sir, Prince Doran said. I am frail and failing, and sometimes Sunspear wearies me, and its noise and dirt and smells. As soon as my duty allows, I mean to return to the Water Gardens. When I do, I shall take Princess Myrcella with me. Before the knight could protest, the prince raised a hand, its knuckles red and swollen. Oh, and so anytime, like, when Doran raises his hand, and we're reminded of his gout, that his hands are swollen, red, and chafed, but up in the air, his hands become a red comet stand-in. Just as Sunspear, again, the sigil of Sunspear, a spear piercing the sun. This is a long night imagery, but in a what we would consider a very sunny place. Because if the sun were speared, if the sun were taken out, as it will, that would be the long night. So Doran's gouty red swollen hands are the comet. The spear piercing the sun, like, is turning the lights out. So you shall go as well, and her septa, her maids, her guards. Sunspear's walls are strong, but beneath them is the Shadow City. Even within the castle, hundreds come and go each day. The gardens are my haven. Prince Meryn raised them as a gift for his Targaryen bride, to mark Dorne's marriage to the Iron Throne. Autumn is a lovely season there. Hot days, cool nights, the salt breeze off the sea, the fountains and the pools. And there are other children, boys and girls of high and gentle birth. Myrcella will have friends of her own age to play with. She will not be lonely. As you say, the prince's words pounded in his head. She will be safe there. Only why had Doran Martell urged him not to write King's Landing about the move? Myrcella will be safest if no one knows just where she is. Sir Arys had agreed, but what choice did he have? He was a knight of the Kingsguard, but only one man for all of that, just as the prince had said. The alley opened suddenly onto a moonlit courtyard. Past the candlemaker's shop, she wrote, a gate and a short flight of exterior steps. He pushed through the gate and climbed the worn steps to an unmarked door. Should I knock? He pushed the door open instead and found himself in a large, dim room with a low ceiling, lit by a pair of scented candles that flickered in niches cut from the thick earthen walls. He saw patterned Myrish carpets underneath his sandals, a tapestry upon one wall, a bed. My lady, he called. Where are you? Here. She stepped out from the shadow beneath the door. An ornate snake coiled around her right forearm, its copper and gold scales glimmering when she moved. It was all she wore. No, he meant to tell her. I only came to tell you I must go. But when he saw her shining in the candlelight, he seemed to lose the power of speech. His throat felt as dry as the Dornish sands. Silent, he stood, drinking in the glories of her body, the hollow of her throat, the round right breasts with their huge dark nipples, the lush curves at waist and hip. All right, yeah, so we are going to go into a classic George R.R. Martin sex scene. It's no fat pink mast, but it'll do. And then somehow he was holding her, and she was pulling off his robes. When she reached his undertunic, she seized it by the shoulders and ripped the silk down to his navel. But Arys was past caring. Her skin was smooth beneath his fingers, as warm to the touch as sand baked by the Dornish sun. Not gonna lie, I would die for hearing it. It's... Yeah. Area. Yeah. If the fan art is anything to speak of, and the commissioned art by George, and again, like she's like 20. What is she? 22. 20, she says her age. As sand baked by the Dornish, he raised her head and found her lips. Her mouth opened under his, and her breast filled his hands. He felt her nipples stiffen as his thumbs brushed over them. Her hair was black and thick and smelled of orchids, a dark and earthy smell that made him so hard it almost hurt. All right. Okay, I got a voice of woman getting... All right. Touch me, sir, the woman whispered in his ear. His hand slipped down her rounded belly to find the sweet wet place beneath the thicket of black hair. Yes, there. She. What's that movie? The fake orgasm, and then the old lady's like, "I'll have what she's having," because we're about to go into that basically. As he slipped a finger up inside her, she made a whimpering sound, drew him to the bed, and pushed him down. More, oh, more, yes, sweet my night, my sweet night, yes, you, I want you, yes, When Harry, thank you, I knew someone in chat would say, yeah, when Harry met Sally. Her hands guided him inside her, then slipped around his back to pull him closer. Deeper, she whispered. Yes, oh. When she wrapped her legs around him, they felt as strong as steel. Her nails raked his back as he drove into her again and again and again, until she screamed and arched her back beneath him. And he was like, bam, bam, bam. And she was like, oh. And he was like, bam, bam. As she did, I'm sorry. Let me just get a drink and regain some composure here. Yeah, originally I had asked Quinn the GM to do this chapter with me. Never got a response, but now I'm kind of like, you know what? It's probably better that I'm reading this by myself instead of making someone else, inflicting this upon someone else live. I'm inflicting it upon you, the audience, but probably be worse if someone else was in the little window up here with me having to do this. So I understand, Quinn, but the invitation is still there for another chapter. Maybe John Con in the future. We'll see. Let's see, read this Frank from Always Sunny. Somewhere along the line, I'll give someone a Danny DeVito. I'll make someone Frank. So anyway, I started blasting until she screamed and arced her back beneath him. As she did, her fingers found his nipples, pinching till he spent his seed with it. Yeah, he did start blasting. I could die now, happy, the knight thought. And for a dozen heartbeats, at least he was at peace. He did not die. His desire was as deep and boundless as the sea, but when the tide receded, the rocks of shame and guilt thrust up as sharp as ever. That's that post-nut clarity right there, but just said in a more poetic way. Sometimes the waves would cover him, but they remained beneath the waters, hard and black and slimy. What am I doing? He asked himself. I am a knight of the Kingsguard. He rolled off of her to sprawl, staring at the ceiling. A great crack ran across it, from one wall to the other. He had not noticed that before, no more than he had noticed the picture on the tapestry, a scene of Nymeria and her 10,000 ships. I see only her. A dragon might have been peering in the window, and I would never have seen anything but her breasts, her face, her smile, her breasts. There is wine, she murmured against his neck. She slid a hand across his chest. Are you thirsty? No. He rolled away and sat on the edge of the bed. The room was hot, and yet he shivered. You bleed, she said. I scratched too hard. When she touched his back, he flinched as if her fingers were afire. Don't. Naked he stood. No more. I have balm for the scratches, but none for my shame. My shame! The scratches are nothing. Forgive me, my lady. I must go. So soon? She had a husky voice, a wide mouth made for whispers, and full lips ripe for kissing, and other things. Her hair tumbled down across her bare shoulders to the tops of her full breasts, black and thick. It curled in big, soft, lazy ringlets. Even the hair upon her mound was soft and curled. No fat pink mask, but we still had to go there. Stay with me tonight, sir. I still have much to teach you. I have learned too much from you already. How does GRRM get these tiny... you've never heard post-nut clarity? Yeah, where it's like, sometimes like, where speaking as a man who's had it before, especially a man who's had one night stands in the past, not proud of them, but you do, like, you get so enraptured when you let, I'll be honest, when I was young, I let my dick do the thinking, and then after it's all said and done, I have to have these moments of, that was a mistake. Why did I do that? I know this, like, nothing's going to come of this. She knows nothing's going to come of this. So it's like, why do I subject myself? And here it's like, because, and I'm not even taking vows. This guy took vows not to do this kind of stuff. But she does have a way of making it sound like no, let's take this literal, like, you're said not to father children. And we get that line from Sam in the show where he's like, yeah, okay, no father children. That's clear, but that doesn't automatically outright cross out everything. You're just living in a time though where birth control is tansy tea, and it's not good to go drink tansy tea all the time, right? Because that's probably going to be bad in the long run as your only means of birth control. So soon, she had a husky voice. Oh, no, sorry, I read all that. You seemed glad enough for the lessons at the time, sir. Are you certain you are not off to some other bed? Some other woman? Tell me who she is. I will fight her for you, bare-breasted, knife to knife. She smiled. Unless she is a sand snake. If so, we can share you. I love my cousins well. Nice. Now, again, incestuous part of that aside, Obara is 30. Nym, Arianne, Tyene are all in their 20s. These are some of the few characters that it's okay to think about in the bathtub. And you might think that's wrong. Like, Tim, how can you say that? And it's like, well, I'm still gonna. And Babs. Lady Barbary Dustin. Lady Babs. Because, but yeah, if you're just, we have these discussions about implementing modern standards on a medieval setting, but here, at least here, it's like they're in their 20s. It's okay. It's okay to look, and it's Dorn. It's like, I should just stop before I quit. Before I keep digging this hole. You know I have no other woman. Only duty. She rolled onto one elbow to look up at him, her big black eyes shining in the candlelight. That poxy bitch! I know her. Dry as dust between the legs, and her kisses leave you bleeding. Let duty sleep alone for once, and stay with me tonight. My place is at the palace, she sighed, with your other princess. You will make me jealous. I think you love her more than me. The maid is much too young for you. You need a woman, not a little girl. But I can play the innocent if that excites you. You want a good girl, but you need a bad pussy. It's implied. It's basically right there. You should not say such things. Remember, she is Dornish. In the Reach, men said it was the food that made Dornish men so hot-tempered and their women so wild and wanton. Fiery peppers and strange spices heat the blood. She cannot help herself. So we're seeing like more of these like Dornish stereotypes, especially coming from a Marcher Lord. I love Myrcella as a daughter. He could never have a daughter of his own. No more than he could have a wife. He had a fine white cloak instead. We are going to the water gardens. Excuse me. Just have to take a drink. Oberyn, give me strength to get through this. Getting through the sex scene took more out of me than I thought it was. I knew I was going to joke my way through it, but I didn't think I was going to derail it that bad. But here we are. Hey. It's George. George is a great writer, but his sex scenes kind of like maybe less is more. George, less is more. Yes, Lord Beer, give me. Oh, alcohol, creator and solver of all problems. Please get me through this. It's only because it's Oberyn. It's only because it's the power of the sun. Eventually, she agreed. Though with my father, everything takes 4 times as long as it should. If he says he means to leave upon the morrow, you will certainly set out within a fortnight. You will be lonely in the gardens, I promise you. And where is the brave young gallant who said he wished to spend the rest of his life in my arms? No, not Blue Moon. It's Oberyn. It's a blue sun. Blue sun. If we were reading some Night's King stuff, then if we'd read some Stannis stuff, then I might have to get Blue Moon, his blue eyes, and all that Night King imagery. And I was drunk when I said that. You'd had 3 cups of watered wine. I was drunk on you. It had been 10 years since. I never touched a woman until you. Not since I took the white. I never knew what love could be. Yet now, I am afraid. What would frighten my white knight? I fear for my honor, he said, and for yours. I can tend to my own honor. She touched a finger to her breast, drawing it slowly round her nipple. And to my own pleasures, if need be. I am a woman grown. She was that, beyond a doubt. Seeing her there upon the feather bed, smiling that wicked smile, toying with her breast. Was there ever a woman with nipples so large or so... There's something with George and the nipples and just all areola. I don't know if that's what he's into. but it's not the first time this comes up. Just a little obsessive. He could hardly look at them without wanting to grab them, to suckle them until they were hard and wet and shiny. Again, the image. And look, I tease George. I tease. It's just the idea of, you know, a 70-year-old man sitting at his desk writing this, maybe with one hand below the table, and it's like the image is just burned in your brain. He looked away. His small clothes were strewn on the carpets. The knight bent to pick them up. Your hands are shaking, she pointed out. They would sooner be caressing me, I think. Must you be in such haste to don your clothes, sir? I prefer you as you are. Abed, unclad. We are our truest selves, a man and a woman, lovers, one flesh as close as two can be. Our clothes make us different people. I would sooner be flesh and blood than silk and jewels. And you are not your white cloak, sir. I am, Sir Arah said. I am my cloak, and this must end, for your sake as well as mine, as we should be discovered. Men will think you fortunate. Men will think me an oathbreaker. What if someone were to go to your father and tell him how I dishonored you? By the end of the night, he'll be bound, bent, and broken. He's already bound, bent, and broken. That happened the first night he got there. But yeah, this idea of the honor. I am my cloak. It's all I have. And we'll see it and again, I think because Arys Oakheart is also a second son, so his rise to the Kingsguard is a promotion that he does feel like he needs to hold on to, because to lose it would mean having nothing. So you can see, like, in that respect, why this vow is so sacred to him, and why he feels like he is tarnishing it, even though he is only doing what would be natural for most people. And this is why we get love is the death of duty. Now, it could be more that Arys might be more in lust than he is with than in love with Arianne. That's just me being skeptical about all of this. He says, like, it had been 10 years since he'd been with since donning the cloak. Later, I think it's in Arianne's POV. She says that that Arys had claimed to be with other women, yet when she took him into her bed, it seemed like it was his first time. So it's possible that he may have been a virgin when he got with her. And that could be another reason why he falls so hard, so head over heels for her. So, but to have all of that and also be coupled with it being seen as breaking your oath, we can see why Arys is in this headspace of, this is wrong and I don't want to do it, yet at the same time I do want it. I want more of it. Arys, it should have been me, not him. No. Yeah, that scene, Yami on the cliff after he loses to, oh god, well, loses to Raphael. Yeah, I'm a weeb. Should have been me, not him. All right, so getting back on track. Do you interpret his suicidal charge as being inspired to devotion to Arianne, at least partly, or more out of desiring redemption for broke oaths? I do see it as redemption. I think his wild charge at Areo Hotal was his own way of trying to save face, to go down doing something, to go down protecting his princess, I believe. And it's kind of kills him. It reads like a suicide by cop type deal, where he where he feels like he's dishonored himself. He knows is as much as he can try and downplay it, as much as Arianne can try and wave it away with the excuses that she'll give him in this chapter, which, to be honest, like so a good portion of what Arianne says actually does make sense. It is logical. Like these oaths that you take, you're taking it to an extreme. Like Jamie points that out to John when John vows for the Night's Watch. He's like, hey, maybe you want to think about what you're getting into. But then Sam with his whole thing of, I believe it's show only, but still, he's like, yeah, don't, just because to say you can't father children doesn't necessarily mean you can't have sex. It just means that you can't. It's a procreation. It's like it's the Moon Tea loophole, I guess we could call it in that regard. But it's also the classic Maester Aemon line of love is the death of duty. And George is also the only thing worth writing is the heart in conflict with itself. Arys Oakheart's heart is in conflict with itself. A Marcher Lord falling head over heels for a Dornish woman and tarnishing the vows that he has, at least in his mind, tarnishing the vows that he has taken, yet at the same time feeling guilty about that, and yet, as we see with this chapter here, not being able to stop because sex just feels good. Do you think Doran's gout is fake? It's apparently the worst case of gout imaginable, yet he will occasionally stand or move. No, I don't think his gout is fake. I think Doran's gout is a core feature of his character because of the blood oranges being swollen and ripe and falling. It is symbolic of Doran Martell like not making a move. He is festering. It gives him more of a dead man walking type sense when he does walk, because when he does walk, it is absolute agony for him, but he is being pushed to move. But like what I had said, going back to the Blood Oranges video, Doran's Deadly Oranges, the gout, like if Doran would get up and move, then that would actually help with his gout, because it's living a sedentary style that Doran has been living is making his gout worse. And he's still eating rich foods, and he still drinks, and he's taking milk of the poppy to help with the pain. But again, that's like an opioid. So the gout is very, very real. I said it's a core feature of Doran. Again with the oranges, I didn't make the motif. I just pointed it out. You blame Coppola and the Godfather for making the oranges thing. But yeah, like for the past 50 years since that became a running theme and has been picked up by other movies and TV shows and odes and homages, the oranges of death, they are a trope. And tropes are not cliches. They are just writing tools. And George, being the big film buff that he is, the dangerous orange trope did not slip past him. He got it in there with Doran Martell and with Sansa, because Sansa and Peter Baelish and all the blood orange stuff that happens with her. So we'll always come back to the oranges whenever we get to Dorn. Unfortunately, beer makes it work. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, like Doran Martell is doing all of the wrong things to treat his gout. What is gout exactly? So gout, it's known as the rich man's disease. So gout is a disease. It causes inflammation, swelling of the joints. So you'll see it in a lot of like ankles, knees, feet, hands, wrists, especially like those are all things. It's like a crystal, a buildup of something like crystals in the blood. But it comes from, like, you can get it from eating like organ meats, and again, it's called the rich man's disease because it comes from living a sedentary lifestyle, which gout is more common today because just how obesity and high blood pressure and diabetes are way more common today because of all the processed food. But back in the day, back in medieval times, to have gout meant that you must have been rich, because only a rich man would have the money and the time to sit around eating stuff that would give you gout. And a good way of getting rid of gout, or at least treating it, is regular exercise. But Doran doesn't do that, because Doran just sits. Again, that is why the gout is such a core feature of his character. Doran Martell doesn't make a move. That is why his gout flares up. Not true. Unfortunately, beer makes... What am I getting wrong, Kimber? I'm not a medical expert, so I'm probably getting something wrong about gout, but the complex form of RA is caused by too much uric acid that crystal. It's uric acid buildup. Exercise could make it work. Everything I've read says that exercise would actually help, that like aerobics, and especially water aerobics too, which is another big thing about Doran spending so much time at the water gardens yet not getting in the pool. Some swimming, at least from what I've read about gout, swimming would do him a world of good. But still, the point is like, yeah, he doesn't make a move. That is why his plans fail, and that is why his gout festers. So, but I am no medical expert. I am not a maester. I'm just looking at the symbolic aspect of the gout, of his inaction, as well as literally. Yeah, again, but yeah, that's the big thing. It's some symbolic of his inaction, as well as literally caused by it. Yes, that is the point of the gout. Feel like we're just beating a dead horse now. So where were we? Can't give much, but here's for the sexy scene there. Oh, is that what is Uruguay's currency called? I'm assuming that's what it is. I just can't give much, but here's for the sexy scene narration. Gotta feel bad for Arys Oakheart. Very much, Creed Evolutions, very much appreciate it. I will take your Uruguayan dollars until I know what exactly the currency is called. Is a peso. Oh, okay, cool. That's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to assume that all Latin American countries went on pesos, but okay. I don't even want to assume that they're all technically Latin American. I'm not sure. Isn't like Suriname like Dutch or something? I got to watch more geography now and learn these things. It's time to learn geography now. All right, we've been away from the story too long at this point. We're having fun. So men will think, okay, my father is many things, but no one has ever said he was a fool. The bastard of God's grace had my maidenhead when we were both 14. Do you know what my father did when he learned? She gathered the bedclothes in her fist and pulled them up under her chin to hide her nakedness. Nothing. My father is very good at doing nothing. He calls it thinking. Tell me true, sir. Is it my dishonor that concerns you, or your own? Both. Her accusation stung. That is why this must be our last time. So you have said before. I did, and meant it too. But I am weak, else I would not be here now. He could not tell her that. She was the sort of woman who despised weakness. He could sense that. Pathetic. She has more of her uncle in her than her father. He turned away and found his striped silk under tunic on a chair. She had ripped the fabric to the navel when she pulled it down over his arms. "This is ruined," he complained. "How can I wear it now?" "Backwards," she suggested. "Once you don your robes, no one will see the tear. Perhaps your little princess will sew it up for you. Or shall I send a new one to the water gardens?" "Send me no gifts. That would only draw attention." He shook out the undertunic and pulled it over his head backwards. The silk felt cool against his skin, though it clung to his back where she'd scratched him. It would serve to get him back to the palace at the least. "All I want is to end this. Is that gallant, sir? You hurt me. I begin to think that all your words of love were lies." "I could never lie to you." Sir Arys felt as if she'd slapped him. "Why else would I have forsaken all my honor but for love? When I am with you, I can scarcely think. You are all I ever dreamt of, but words are wind. If you love me, do not leave me. I swore a vow not to wed or father children. Well, I have drunk my moon tea, and you know I cannot marry you." She smiled. "Though I might be persuaded to keep you for my paramour." So she would laugh at a guy for being too nervous. That actually does happen. I think it's in the Princess in the Tower chapter. She has a memory of her and Ty again, just how she had said she would share Arys Oakheart with one of the Sand Snakes. Her and Tyene were supposed to have a threesome with Garen he's one of the orphans of the Green Blood, and he is accomplices in the Queenmaker chapter. They were going to have a threesome, but Garen had a premature departure. But it would have happened. So I cannot marry you, though I might be persuaded to keep you for my paramour. Now you mock me. Perhaps a little. Do you think you are the only Kingsguard who ever loved a woman? There have always been men who found it easier to speak vows than to keep them, he admitted. Sir Boris Blount was no stranger to the Street of Silk, and Sir Preston Greenfield used to call at a certain draper's house whenever the draper was away. But Arys would not shame his sworn brothers by speaking of their failings. Sir Terence Toyne was found abed with his king's mistress, he said instead. 'Twas love he swore, but he cost his life and hers, and brought about the downfall of his house and the death of the noblest knight who ever lived. Yes, and what of Lucamore the Lusty, with his 3 wives and 16 children? The song always makes me laugh. The truth is not so funny. He was never called Lucamore the Lusty whilst he lived. His name was Sir Lucamore Strong, and his whole life was a lie. When his deceit was discovered, his own sworn brothers gelded him, and the old king sent him to the wall. Those 16 children were left weeping. He was no true knight, no more than Terence Toyne. And the Dragon Knight? She flung the bedclothes aside and swung her legs to the floor. The noblest knight who ever lived, you said, and he took his queen to bed and got her with child. I will not believe that, he said, offended. The tale of Prince Aemon's treason with Queen Nerys was only that, a tale, a lie his brother told when he wished to set his true-born son aside in favor of his bastard. Aegon was not called the unworthy without cause. All right, so this is where we go. So we just got a huge history lesson on some Kingsguards here. And these I want to point out because, again, this is talking about where the Dornish and the Blackfyre stories meet up. But the Terence Toyne story is an outlier on that one because Terence Toyne is killed by Aegon the Unworthy, who is the father of Blackfyres. So the story is, so for those who don't know, the quick summary of the story of Terrence Toyne and the fall of House Toyne. So Aegon the Unworthy has his 9 mistresses. The 9 women he claims to have truly loved out of the hundreds that he'd been. Thank you for doing. I'll take 20 pounds. Ooh. Thank you for doing these chapter reads. I really enjoy listening to the Arya and Tyrion ones too. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we will get back to Tyrion and we will do the other Arya. Like us, those are the anything with the Dorne and the Blackfyre chapters are on the list. Whether it's here on my channel or with Dave, like I said, he wants to do the Queenmaker, but they'll be done. They'll be done eventually. Like I said, I think I'm just so many chapters just add to the list. I'm getting to the point where maybe one day I'll just be like, you know what, we need to start back. All right, prologue, Game of Thrones, book 1. Let's do this. But anyway, okay, so history lesson. So House Toyne. Okay, so Terrence Toyne is a member of the Kingsguard for Aegon the Unworthy, Aegon the Fourth. Aegon has his 9 mistresses. The 7th is a Bracken, and this is when Aegon is starting to get really, really, really fat. He is not the strapping young prince or the comely king that he once was. Like his vices have taken over, and he's starting to get that gut and the chins. But this Bracken girl, who's actually the younger sister of his 5th mistress, who is also another Bracken woman, who is also the mother of Bittersteel. She and their father groom her younger sister to be Aegon's next mistress, but she does not like Aegon. Instead, she finds comfort in Terrence Toyne, a member of Aegon the Unworthy's Kingsguard. And the story is that Aegon finds them in bed together. They proclaim their love, hoping that that'll sway the king's feelings. But Aegon the Unworthy is a huge piece of shit by this point, and he orders the deaths of both of them and Lord Bracken. So Terrence Toyne is dismembered piece by piece in front of her. And it is later that Terrence Toyne's brothers, in an act of revenge, attempt an assassination on King Aegon. But Aegon is protected by another member of the Kingsguard, his younger brother, Aemon the Dragonknight. And Aemon the Dragonknight is important because Aemon, again, being another one of these Aemon namesakes, following the line of Aemons who never got to be king, Aemon the Dragonknight is Jon's personal hero. He's said to be like the greatest, one of the greatest Kingsguard to ever live, right up there with Sir Barristan, with Arthur Dane, with all the big names. Aemon the Dragonknight is like every kid's hero, the one that they look up to. Aemon the Dragonknight dies fighting for his king, his brother. It sounds like a very noble death, but it's dying for Aegon the Fourth. And as outsiders looking in, you can kind of get this idea of, Aemon, you threw your life away because, if anything, the realm would have actually been better off if you had let the king die. If Aemon the Dragonknight had just looked the other way, I mean, yeah, it would have been a failure on his part letting the king die. But then Aegon never would have been able to legitimize all of his bastards. The Blackfyre rebellions never would have happened if Aemon the Dragonknight had faltered or just let the Toynes have their revenge. But Aemon the Dragonknight dies fighting for his king, for his brother, and his brother immediately forgets about him. Like, again, huge piece of shit. But this becomes another theme because we see the same thing with Sir Barristan. Sir Barristan's one of his big claims to fame. He has a couple big claims to fame. One is he kills. Well, his first big claim to fame is becoming Barristan the Bold when he takes on Prince Duncan, Prince of Dragonflies. This is Egg's eldest son that he names after Duncan the Tall. That's how he gets the name Barry the Bold. He's like 11 years old, and he enters the lists as a mystery knight, and he goes and he takes on the prince. He loses, but Prince Duncan is like, this is a bold kid, and that's how he gets the name. Barry's next big claim to fame is he kills Meleys the Monstrous on the Stepstones. He ends the War of the Nine Penny Kings. He ends, which is also the 5th Blackfyre Rebellion. And then his next big claim to fame is during the Defiance of Duskendale, where he does his one-man army, just like James Bond entering to save Arys, the Mad King. But he looks back on this and he says, like, that was my greatest moment, but it could have been my greatest folly, because when he gets Arys out of Duskendale, Arys is never the same. That is when Arys's like craziness gets ramped up to the next level. And we know that like Tywin was actually banking on the Darklands killing Arys, and he was prepped for it. It was like, well, then we get Rhaegar, and then we get a mulligan on this, and we can go on. But no, he lets Barry do the mission, but that's because he didn't think he had no idea that Barry was actually going to succeed and actually get Arys out of there alive. No, like Tywin was banking on Barry to fail, and for Arys to get killed, Tywin would be Tywin. He'd take out the Darklands, but he wouldn't do it out of malice. He'd just be doing it as seeing like, well, I have to. They killed the king, but even though I wanted them to kill the king, but that was the thing. And the same thing with Aemon the Dragonknight. Like, he lays down his life for his brother, but it's probably would have been better if he just let the man die. But that's the story of Aemon the Dragonknight and Terrence Toyne. So Terrence Toyne, killed by Aegon the Unworthy. His brothers try to assassinate him in revenge. They're killed by Aemon the Dragonknight, but Aemon goes down with them. House Toyne then falls, and what's left of House Toyne becomes just as they become like robber knights. There's Simon Toyne, who leads a brotherhood. I'm blanking on the name. What was? Let me just hit the wiki real quick, because I'm just the Kingswood Brotherhood. Okay, yeah. So Simon Toyne leads the Kingswood Brotherhood. And after that, we don't hear much about House Toyne after that, after Simon's taken out, until we get to Blackheart, who is Miles Toyne. Yeah, Miles Toyne is a general of the Golden Company, and he is the one who John Connington was making plans with in secret. But this is where I see like how House Toyne is kind of an outlier in this, because the Golden Company historically are Blackfyre supporters, Daemon Blackfyre and his descendants. But the fall of House Toyne comes as a direct result of Aegon the Unworthy, who is the father of Blackfyres. So the Toyne supporting Daemon Blackfyre is kind of a standout, but it just goes to show like how these connections and how these allegiances can bend and shift and all of that. Because if anything, you would think that the Toynes would have every reason to hate everything about Aegon the Unworthy and everything that came from him, whether it be bastard or trueborn or anything. But no, the Toynes eventually become members of the Golden Company, and they conspire with Jon Con, and they are working in Varys' schemes. But then Miles Toyne dies before we meet him, and now Harry Strickland, homeless Harry, is now the captain general, and Jon Con has to pivot and talk with him. And I'll read the John. I'm definitely going to read the John Con chapters. Those are also on the list. And every time I think of Harry Strickland, I just think of Strickland Propane from King of the Hill. So Harry Strickland, I'm probably going to give him a Buck Strickland voice. Come on now, old top 4 generations of gold. Yeah. That's a history lesson on Terrence Toyne and House Toyne and all that, and Aemon the Dragonknight. And it's another reason too, like Aemon the Dragonknight being Jon's personal hero, along with Maester Aemon and the whole love is the death of duty. It's one of these reasons that they add. They're the building blocks of why I think that Jon Snow's real name, his Targaryen name, is probably Aemon. Because I just can't buy that Rhaegar would name another son Aegon, even if Lyanna is the one who names Jon, gives him his real name. I don't see her. She would be aware that there's already that Rhaegar already has a son named Aegon. So naming a second kid Aegon makes little sense to me. But Rhaegar did have a relationship with Maester Aemon, even though Maester Aemon's at the wall. They regularly exchanged letters. They were pen pals. There were letters going back and forth between King's Landing and the Wall. So Jon's name being Aemon and lining up with Aemon's never sitting the throne seems to line up well with Jon. Yeah, appreciate Aegon Jon. I'm sure it is a show thing too. D&D, not the brightest bulbs, but yeah, I think Jon's real name is Aemon. So Aemon's treason with Queen, and yeah, Aemon's treason with Queen Daenerys. So there is a rumor, more than likely, it wasn't concocted by Aegon IV, but he did allow it to spread and may have spread it himself. That Daeron II, Daeron the Good, the one who eventually does bring Dorne into the fold through marriage, Aegon the Unworthy will claim that Daeron is actually the bastard, that Daeron's real father is Aemon the Dragonknight. And so that, and again, like that creates this whole other aspect to the Blackfyre rebellions of, if that's true, like we know that Daemon Blackfyre is a bastard, legitimized or not, he is a bastard. But if Daeron is actually a bastard of Aemon the Dragonknight, then that makes the Blackfyre, that's not a war between the trueborn son versus the bastard claimant. That's a war between two bastards claiming the throne. And you cycle that all the way back to Aegon the Conqueror and the idea, me and Dave, like I've talked with Dave about a number of times, the idea that maybe Aenys the First and Maegor not being Aegon's, like this Targaryen legitimacy, like there's always a succession crisis with the Targaryens, and it could stem all the way back to Aegon of like, this may have never been a legitimate line, at least not through the father. House Targaryen, like the entire claims of House Targaryen may stem from the maternal line. And then that gets broken again if Daeron II is actually the bastard of Aemon the Dragonknight. And then that's why the Blackfyre stuff becomes even more paramount when we remember when we get that little nugget of information from Illyrio of the male line died out, the Blackfyre line continuing through the female. So it makes all the claims to the throne coming from a female line. And then that brings the idea of well, then what makes Dany's claim even less? Like, it's just a constant blurring of the lines. Like the move from king to king, when you look at the history from Aegon the Conqueror until the Mad King, it's actually the idea kingship going from father to son and being a smooth transition. Actually, that actually happens a lot less often than there's more succession crises than there are smooth transitions. It's just a huge mess. Again, that's why these connections and these lineages and the vassals and the alliances are all so murky. It's like it's like modern day money. Like, this is built on a foundation of nothing. We went way too far into the weeds. We got to get back. We're doing that a lot. We'll go back to the story. So he found his sword belt. Bring up the story again. He found his sword belt and buckled it around his waist. Though it looked queer against the silken Dornish undertunic, the familiar weight of longsword and dagger reminded him of who and what he was. I will not be remembered as Sir Arys the Unworthy, he declared. I will not soil my cloak. Yes, she said, that fine white cloak. You forget, my great uncle wore the same cloak. He died when I was little, yet I still remember him. He was as tall as a tower and used to tickle me until I could not breathe for laughing. I never had the honor to know Prince Lewin, Sir Arys said, but all agree that he was a great knight. A great knight with a paramour. She is an old woman now, but she was a rare beauty in her youth, men say. Prince Lewin? That tale Sir Arys had not heard. It shocked him. Terence Toyn's treason and the deceits of Lucamore the Lusty were recorded in the White Book, but there was no hint of a woman on Prince Lewin's page. My uncle always said that it was the sword in a man's hand that determined his worth, not the one between his legs, she went on. So spare me all your pious talk of soiled cloaks. It is not our love that has dishonored you. It is the monsters you have served and the brutes you've called your brothers. That cut too close to the bone. Robert was no monster. He climbed onto his throne over the corpses of children, she said, though I grant you, he was no Joffrey. And yeah, Robert the Usurper, if we view him as that, the bodies of Rhaenys and Aegon Targaryen laid at his feet, and Robert smiles, and Robert has this bloodlust for Targaryens. Every night in my dreams, I kill him. Robert is a monster at times, and he is a good man at times. Very light and very dark, shades of gray. It's like Richard Kuklinski, right? Like, this is a loving family man, yet we remember him as a mob hitman. Like, Robert's got that vibe to him. Robert could have monstrous moments, especially where Targaryens were concerned, and where his wife was concerned. Like, Robert abuses Cersei. He abuses Joffrey. I mean, in Joffrey, we get this, like, Joffrey mutilates a cat, brings it, like, Robert reacts in horror, and that's fine, but then his next response is to backhand Joffrey so hard, he sends him flying across the room and knocks out 2 of his teeth. Not a good response. The horror, shock, and disgust is fine. That's a normal visceral reaction that comes from a normal human being. But the response afterwards to basically punch this kid in the face is where the monster comes out. And yeah, it is like that loss of illusion. Yeah, it is. And when you look at things through rose-colored glasses, if you think of people like how she's brought up, Prince Lewin, remembered as a great knight, yet she's telling him, like, well, he had a paramour. He was sleeping with women. He was constantly breaking that vow. And then Aemon the Dragonknight, the one who's held up as the pinnacle of what a Kingsguard is supposed to be, even he has possible skeletons in his closet if the rumors are true. If Daeron the Good is actually Aemon's son and not Aegon the Unworthy's. Love is the death of duty. So, Joffrey, he had been a handsome lad, tall and strong for his age, but that was all the good that could be said of him. It still shamed Sir Arys to remember all the times he'd struck that poor Stark girl at the boy's command. When Tyrion had chosen him to go with Myrcella to Dorne, he lit a candle to the warrior in thanks. Joffrey's dead, poisoned by the imp. He would never have thought the dwarf capable of such enormity. Tommen is king now, and he is not his brother. So yeah, like going back to what you just said, the monsters you serve, the brutes you call your brothers. And it comes up a lot. Like, again, we'll talk with when Dave's channel, he's been doing like Jaime chapters, so that comes up a lot. Jaime standing outside the door of Arys and Rhaella and hearing what's going on and saying, like, shouldn't we do something? And Gerald Hightower saying, not against him. Like Jaime says, like, we're supposed to protect her, but not from him. Looking the other, like, just these things, looking the other way, the Nuremberg excuse, I was only following orders, like, that is it. Like, holding up the vows of the Kingsguard means, sometimes it means being complicit in actions of monsters, placating to monsters, allowing them to do bad things and looking the other way. And that's what makes Jaime's story so compelling. And Arys is having the same moment where sometimes you're fed information that flies in the face of everything that you believed and everything you held sacred, and it rattles you. And like so Chad had said again, Northern Tommy, it's that loss of illusion. Thank you. That is actually a perfect illustration of that. The loss of illusion. Like, is everything that I know was a lie? Everything that I was taught to believe is a lie? Not all of it, but some of it. And you need to, and in order to come to terms with that, you first need to confront it. And some guys are willing to just turn a blind eye to it all the time. That's how you get your Boris Blounts. That's how you get your Maren Trance. The ones who will beat Sansa at Joffrey's command, and they'll hit her as hard as she can. Arys Oakheart is hitting Sansa, but he's trying. He tries and downplays it by saying Sansa's the one who says like Arys never hit her as hard as the other Kingsguards would, but he was still hitting her. He was still following that order. And it's like, if anything has soiled your cloak, Arys, it's those actions more than having sex with Arianne. Tommen is king's now, and he is not his brother, nor is he his sister. It was true. Tommen was a good-hearted little man who always... He's a little trooper. He's a good kid. He was a good-hearted little man who always tried his best, but the last time Sir Arys saw him, he had been weeping on the quay. Myrcella never shed a tear, though it was she who was leaving hearth and home to seal an alliance with her maidenhood. The truth was, the princess was braver than her brother, and brighter, and more confident as well. Her wits were quicker, her courtesies more polished. Nothing ever daunted her, not even Joffrey. The women are the strong ones, truly. He was thinking not only of Myrcella, but of her mother and his own, of the Queen of Thorns, of the Red Viper's pretty deadly sand snakes, and of Princess Arianne Martell, her most of all. I will not say that you are wrong. His voice was hoarse. Will not, cannot. Myrcella is more fit for rule. A son comes before a daughter. Why? What god has made it so? I am my father's heir. Should I give up my rights to my brothers? You twist my words. I never said. Dorne is different. The Seven Kingdoms have never had a ruling queen. And you can see too, like how not only because Criston Cole is going to be brought up next. So not only does this fit quite well with the Blackfyre plot, but we're getting a lot of recollection back to the Dance of the Dragons and the next page we get to. So, you know, this is a good prep up for season 2. The king, when we talk about the Kingmaker. The first Viserys intended his daughter Rhaenyra to follow him. Do you deny it? But as the king lay dying, the Lord Commander of his Kingsguard decided that it should be otherwise. Okay, so yeah, so this is one of the changes from book to show. In book, it is Criston Cole who is the one who makes the decision of we're going to crown Aegon. We're not going to crown Rhaenyra. And at Aegon's coronation, Criston Cole is the one to place the crown upon his head. That's why he gets the moniker Kingmaker. Now, the show has changed that to make it Alicent. Alicent's the one who hears Viserys' last words and misconstrues them into thinking that he wanted Aegon to be... he was talking about their Aegon, not Aegon the Conqueror. And then at the coronation, I believe it was Alicent who placed the crown on his head. If not, chat, if I'm wrong, correct me. I know it wasn't Criston Cole. It was either Alicent or Otto, but not Criston Cole who placed the crown on his head. But Criston Cole, but still. So I'm not sure how this show is going to go with Criston Cole, if they're going to do the Kingmaker moniker. If it comes up, it'll have to be done in a different way since he doesn't crown him. But yeah. So Sir Criston Cole, Criston the Kingmaker, had set brother against sister and divided the Kingsguard against itself, bringing on the terrible war the singers named the Dance of the Dragons. Some claim he acted from ambition, for Prince Aegon was more tractable than his willful older sister. Others allowed him nobler motives and argued that he was defending ancient Andal custom. A few whispered that Sir Criston had been Princess Rhaenyra's lover before he took the White and wanted vengeance on the woman who had spurned him. And from the show, like looks like Criston did crown a... Oh, he did? I thought it was Alicent. Okay, so yeah, so then he is still Kingmaker. Okay. But yeah, but from the show's perspective, we are going with the spurned lover idea of Criston Cole sleeps with Rhaenyra once, but because she's not willing to give, and he sees it as soiling himself, tarnishing his vow, the way that Arys Oakheart sees himself as a soiled knight, tarnishing his vow for sleeping with Arianne. But Criston Cole takes it to the extreme level of a lover spurned. And we see that when he starts to become like kind of an incel. Not a true incel because he had sex, but still an incel. The way he talks about Rhaenyra later on when the years passed. Just, you know, like that whore, like that's how he views her. And it's because she is unwilling to step down from her role and go run off with him. And I said, like go take a boat to ET and sell oranges. Like, no, that we're not going to do that, man. Like, I'm in a higher position. I'm going to be queen, okay? Do you understand that? I'm going to be queen. I'm going to run off to the free cities to make you feel better about yourself. So, you know, when they say like hell has no fury like a woman scorned, like, no, hell has no fury like a mediocre man scorned, okay? That's why women choose the bear. So, the Kingmaker wrought grave harm, Sir Arys said, and gravely did he pay for it. But perhaps the Seven sent you here so that one white knight might make right what another set awry. You do know that when my father returns to the Water Gardens, he plans to take Myrcella with him, to keep her safe from those who would do her harm. No, to keep her away from those who'd seek to crown her. Prince Oberyn Viper would have placed the crown upon her head himself if he had lived, but my father lacks the courage. She got to her feet. You say you love the girl, as you would a daughter of your own blood. Would you let your daughter be despoiled of her rights and locked away in prison? The water gardens are no prison, he protested feebly. A prison does not have fountains and fig trees. Is that what you think? Yet once the girl is there, she will not be allowed to leave. No more than you will. Hota will see to that. You do not know him as I do. He is terrible when aroused. Sir Arys frowned. The big Norvoshi captain with the scarred face had always made him feel profoundly uneasy. They say he sleeps with that great axe beside him. And when we go back to the Arya Hota chapter, Arya Hota's first, his opinion of Arys Oakheart when he first meet him is, I'm going to have to kill this guy. I just know it. And that's exactly what happens. So Arys has every reason to be afraid of Arya Hota. Because Sasha's a-coming. What would you have me do? No more than you have sworn. Protect Myrcella with your life. Defend her. End her rights. Set a crown upon her head. But to crown her is to kill her. He's technically Volcel. So voluntarily insulted. I swore an oath to Joffrey, not to Tommen. Aye, but Tommen is a good-hearted boy. He will be a better king than Joffrey, but not better than Myrcella. She loves the boy as well. I know she will not let him come to any harm. Storm's End is his by rights, since Lord Renly left no heir, and Lord Stannis is attainted. In time, Casterly Rock will pass to the boy as well, through his lady mother. He will be as great a lord as any in the realm, but Myrcella by rights should sit the Iron Throne. And, technically speaking, that is a good concession. You don't get to be king, but you're going to be Lord of Storm's End and Casterly Rock? But again, it doesn't matter because all of Cersei's kids are going to die. They don't know that, but we know that. And yeah, to crown her is to kill her. And to crown her, definitely got her mutilated by Darkstar. The law. I do not know. I do. When she stood, the long black tangle of her hair fell down to the small of her back. Aegon the Dragon made the Kingsguard and its vows, but what one king does, another can undo or change. Formerly, the Kingsguard served for life, yet Joffrey dismissed Sir Barristan so his dog could have a cloak. Myrcella would want you to be happy, and she is fond of me as well. She will give us leave to marry if we ask. Arianne put her arms around him and laid her face against his chest. The top of her head came to just beneath his chin. You can have me and your white cloak both, if that is what you want. And to be fair, if we want to, even the Kingsguard, she says Aegon the Dragonknight made him, but we can actually give more credit to the Kingsguard formation to Visenya than we can to Aegon. So even the creation of the Kingsguard comes from the female end of Targaryen, just blurring the lines even more of all these sacred vows and lineage and all that. She is, you're tearing me apart, Arianne. She is tearing me apart. You know I do, but I am a princess of Dorne, she said in her husky voice, and it is not meet that you should make me beg. Sir Arys could smell the perfume in her hair and feel her heart beating as she pressed against him. His body was responding to her closeness, and he did not doubt that she could feel it too. When he put his arms upon her shoulders, he realized she was trembling. Arianne, my princess, what is it, my love? Must I say it, sir? I am afraid. You call me love, yet you refuse me, when I have most desperate need of you. It is so wrong of me to want a knight to keep me safe. He had never heard her sound so vulnerable. No, he said, but you have your father's guards to keep you safe. Why, it is my father's guards I fear. For a moment, she sounded younger than Myrcella. It was my father's guards who dragged my sweet cousins off in chains. Senya literally came up with it with her dramatic sword. Yeah, because she's the one who takes she takes a swing at him, and she gets her sword point right to his cheek, and it's like, an inch deeper, and it would have went straight into his head. But she does it to prove a point of, like, your guards are too slow. You need better ones. And yeah, that's the formation of the Kingsguard right there. Not in chains. I have heard that they have every comfort. She gave a bitter laugh. Have you seen them? He will not permit me to see them. Did you know that? They were speaking treason, fermenting war. Laresa is 6. Doria 8. What wars could they foment? Yet my father has imprisoned them with their sisters. You have seen him. Fear makes even strong men do things they might never do otherwise. And my father was never strong. Arys, my heart, hear me for the love you say you bear me. I have never been as fearless as my cousins, for I was made with weaker seed. But Tyene and I are of an age, and have been as close as sisters since we were little girls. We have no secrets between us. If she can be imprisoned, so can I, and for the same cause, this of Myrcella. So, this line stands out to me. Arianne talks about how she loves all of her cousins, but Tyene is the one that she feels closest to. But in the Queenmaker chapter, when everything falls apart, and Arianne's questioning it, like, how could this have happened? And Hotah just says, someone talked, someone always talks. There's a snitch. And I've always felt like it is Tyene. That Tyene is the one who snitched. And it's just a gut feeling. And it couples with George, again, that line from George, like the heart in conflict with itself. But I don't know. I need to look for more substantial evidence, but I just have this gut feeling that Tyene is the one who snitched to Doran Martell about what Arianne and Garen and Darkstar were up to. Got to find more foundation for that, but I just have a feeling. Your father would never do that. You do not know my father. I have been disappointing him since I first arrived in this world without a cock. 6 times he has tried to marry me to toothless graybeards, each more contemptible than the last. He never commanded me to wed them, I grant you, but the offers alone prove how little he regards me. And yeah, so going back to what we outlined, Doran's true motives. So he is making offers to wed Arianne to men that he knows she is not going to be happy with. Like, there's a point where fucking Walder Frey was one of the options put forward, and Arianne has to be like, are you fucking serious? Like, no, but that's because Dorn's doing it to cloak his real motives, which was, no, you're supposed to. The real plan is you're going to go to Tyrosh. You're going to be cupbearer for the Archon, who at this very moment is housing Viserys Targaryen and Dany. Dany and Viserys move a lot between the free cities. So there is a point where they spend time, where they're in Braavos, where they're in Myr, and they're in Tyrosh. And we know this because Dany speaks Valyrian with a Tyroshi accent. So Arianne was supposed to go to Tyrosh, be the cupbearer, and that's where she was going to meet Viserys in secret and bring with her this marriage pact. That was the original plan, but it couldn't be done because Doran Martell's wife, Malaria, was threatened to, she threatened to hurt herself, to harm herself if she sent another one of her children away, because Quentin had been sent off to foster House Ironwood. That was that was in recompense of Oberyn, of Oberyn killing an Ironwood in a duel. They were fighting over a paramour. It came to a duel, but Oberyn coated the blade with poison, and Lord, so a former Lord Ironwood passes, and yeah, so Quentin being sent to the Ironwoods. It's not just a fostering. It's actually kind of you think about it, it's kind of more of a hostage situation. It's like Quentin gets sent to the Ironwoods in the way to make up for a crime of a relative. The way that Theon gets sent to the Starks because of Baelin's shenanigans in the Greyjoy Rebellion. But fostering is not a Norvoshi thing. Malaria is from Norvos. That's how Arya Hota comes to join Doran's crew. That's just not what they do. So she's like, you sent, so she's flabbergasted by this idea. Like, you sent our son away? You gave our son away because of what your brother did? Like, it boggles for her, it's unacceptable. So the idea of Arianne being sent off to Tyrosh, Malaria is like, no, we're not. You're not going to do this again. You're not taking my babies. But then Malaria leaves. She ends up going back to Norvos. But Doran was in love. It's said like Doran Martell has planned out everything, but Malaria he married for love. He married for love. There was like no pact. No, like it's not like Doran is getting Norvoshi support because he took Malaria to wife. He married her out of love. It's another love is the death of duty. The one decision that Doran makes that wasn't a calculated decision, that was made out of pure emotion, is also becomes the biggest wrench thrown into his plans because he can't get Arianne off to Tyrosh because of the love that he has for Malaria, and she leaves him anyway. So just the tangled webs we weave and the roads not taken, all of that. You can feel for Doran at times, like even Doran's not like just like with Robert. Like Doran can be there's the monster part of Doran, but then there's the human part of Doran, and you can see like the sadness, the love of that he has for Malaria, that he's still holding a candle to her, even though she is gone, and he still respect her wishes because she went back to Norvos. Like, there's nothing stopping him from sending Arianne out after that moment, but he still keeps her at home because of his love for Malaria, because he doesn't want to backtrack and do again with another child what he does with Quentin. But it's Arianne's actions in the Queenmaker that force Doran's hand to make him send her out into the world. And that's why she's now en route to the Stormlands with the Golden Company to meet with Fagon. So, but yeah, like, so that was that. But yeah, that's the original plan. Arianne was supposed to marry Viserys and become queen, and that's why it's such a gut punch for her when we find that out, the animosity that she has towards her father, because she feels like her father wants to set her aside, that he's prepping Quentin to be Lord of Sunspear. But the reality is, like, yeah, he is, but that's because he had bigger plans for you. Like, it's not that he wants to set you aside to make Quentin heir. Quentin needs to be Lord of Sunspear because because if his plan goes through, you're going to be queen of all of Westeros by marrying Viserys Targaryen. But then that plan goes tits up when Khal Drogo kills Viserys. So then Doran's like, well, I got to pivot. And now Quentin's going off. And now Arianne, like, yeah, now you are going to be Lord of the Princess of Sunspear, the Lord Paramount of Dorne. But that's because now Quentin needs to be king or king consort. So it's like this constant like leveling of the children. Like, you're still gonna get this, but that's because this one needs to get something bigger in order for all of this to work out. And that's why another reason like Doran Martell's plans failing is he's not good at pivoting. His plans have these levels. Well, if a foundation breaks, he's not good at pivoting, at least not in the way that Varys is, and then Littlefinger, who just thrives in chaos. Like, Doran's plans are structured. So, even so, you are his heir, am I? He left you to rule in Sunspear when he took himself off to his water gardens, did he not? To rule? No. Excuse me. Just gonna take a quick drink again. It's hard when you're switching from one voice to another. To rule? No. He left his cousin Sir Manfred as Castellan, old blind Ricasso as Seneschal, his bailiffs to collect duties and taxes for his treasurer Alice Ladybright to count, his sheriffs to police the Shadow City, his justiciars to sit in judgment, and Maester Miles to deal with any letters not requiring the prince's own attention. Above them all he placed the Red Viper. My charge was feasts and frolics, and the entertainment of distinguished guests. Oberyn would visit the water gardens twice a fortnight. Me he summoned twice a year. I am not the heir my father wants. He has made that plain. Our laws constrain him, but he would sooner have my brother follow him. I know it. And this is like another good Rhaenyra parallel in going on in House of the Dragon, that Viserys in season 1 not doing a great job of prepping Rhaenyra for the true duties of being in charge, even though he says that he's not placing her aside, that she will be queen. She's being relegated off to more of these like secondary, lower tier duties. And that's because Viserys is letting Otto Hightower dictate those types of things. But Doran Martell is doing the same thing. Like, he's not prepping Arianne to be Lord Paramount of Dorne, to be the Princess of Dorne, because he was prepping Quentyn to. But even when word finally reaches, and I get it, like, it probably took a while for word to get back from the Dothraki Sea all the way to Dorne to let Doran Martell know, hey, Viserys is dead. Your little plan like was never gonna it already had the first wrench thrown into it by your estranged wife. Now it's never gonna happen. So now he has to pivot and send Quentyn out. But even then, he's still not bringing Arianne into the fold. That is why the Queenmaker chapter is so necessary. It's the thing to really light a fire under Doran Martell's gouty ass. Like, if you're not going to move, then we have to force you to move. And that's what sets it into motion. He summoned me twice a year. I am not the heir my father wants. He has made that plain. Our laws constrain him, but he would sooner have my brother follow him. I know it. Your brother? Sir Arys put his hand beneath her chin and raised her head, the better to look her in the eyes. You cannot mean Trystane. He is just a boy. Not Tris. Quentyn. Her eyes were bold and black as sin, unflinching. I have known the truth since I was 4 and 10. Since the day that I went to my father's solar to give him a goodnight kiss and found him gone. My father had sent for him, I learned later. Oh, yeah, it just hit me. So earlier she had said that she lost her maidenhead to the bastard of God's grace at age 14. And it's at age 14 that she discovers this letter. So she might have thrown her virginity away to scorn her father because of how much sacredness is placed on virginity in this world. She might have had sex with the Bastard of God's grace just to get back at Daddy. Oh. Oh. Holy hell. Oh, that just dawned on me. Damn. Yeah. Because like it does. It's wrong, obviously. And I like look. I'm just gonna just speak. Daddy issues are real. This is gonna speak like from the heart. Okay. The thing about like virginity, you know, it's more of it is made out than what it should. Now, that's not to say that virginity is not something to take seriously. Like, I'll say, like, if look, you always want your first time to be special. I get, like, I would never fault anyone for that. Like, I would even say, like, make your first time special. Make your first time, you know, someone you truly care about, who truly cares about you, if you can. But at the same time, it's like, look, it's not that sacred. It's not that big of a deal. It shouldn't. It should not have this. It has value, but it doesn't have like all this baggage that we attach to it is completely unnecessary. But in this world, it's so goddamn important. So yeah, if she had sex just to scorn her father, just to scorn her father, because it does ruin some potential marriage options and makes the whole throwing her to old men thing, because that's what happened. Because again, I said, like, Walder Frey was one of the things. Well, go back to Dunk and Egg stories. Walder Frey's older sister is given to Lord Butterwell because she was caught getting it on with the scullion. Like, she's seen as tainted goods. That's why she's given over to old man Butterwell. So it's like going around. It's like we come full circle, and then so Arianne is offered up to Walder Frey as a potential match. One that Dora Martell knows is not going to happen, but still. And it makes you wonder, like, how would Viserys have looked at that, and how will Fagon look at that? Like, will they see it is that going to be a deal breaker? In purity culture, like, this could be a potential deal breaker. All right. Well, now we unpacked all of that. We'll go back. So yeah, I went to my father's solar to give him a goodnight kiss and found him gone. My mother had sent for him. I learned later. He'd left a candle burning. When I went to blow it out, I found a letter lying incomplete beside it. A letter to my brother Quentin off at Ironwood. My father told Quentin that he must do all that his maester and his master-at-arms required of him, because one day you will sit where I sit and rule all Dorne, and a ruler must be strong of mind and body. A tear crept down Arianne's soft cheek. My father's words, written in his own hand, they burned themselves into my memory. I cried myself to sleep that night, and many nights thereafter. Sir Arys had yet to meet Quentin Martell. The prince had been fostered by Lord Ironwood from a tender age, had served him as a page, then a squire, had even taken knighthood at his hands in preference to the Red Vipers. If I were a father, I would want my son to follow me as well, he thought, but he could hear the hurt in her voice, and he knew that if he said what he was thinking, he would lose her. And that's another backslap to Quentin too. Like, you're sent to foster Lord Ironwood, but you're kind of more of a hostage than anything. But Lord Ironwood becomes more of a father to him than Doran Martell does. And Doran Martell laments this fact. And that's like Theon. Ned Stark becomes more of a father to Theon than Balon Greyjoy ever was. Perhaps you misunderstood, he said. You were only a child. So that just makes me think again of like how dirty the show did the Dornish plot and the Ironborn plot when we start seeing these connections. Quentin is a Dornish Theon. Who would have thunk it? Perhaps you misunderstood, he said. You were only a child. Perhaps the prince was only saying that to encourage your brother to be more diligent. You think so? Then tell me, where is Quentin now? The prince is with Lord Ironwood's host in the Boneway, Sir Arys said cautiously. That was what Sunspear's ancient Castellan had told him when he first came to Dorne. The maester with the silky beard said the same. Arianne demurred. So my father wishes us to believe, but I have friends who tell me otherwise. My brother has crossed the narrow sea in secret, posing as a common merchant. Why? How would I know? There could be 100 reasons. Or one. Are you aware that the Golden Company has broken its contract with Myr? Sellswords break their contracts all the time. Not the Golden Company. Our word as good as gold has been their boast since the days of Bittersteel. Myr is on the point of war with Lys and Tyrosh. Why break a contract that offered them the prospect of good wages and good plunder? So now we come back to more Blackfyre stuff. Anytime the Golden Company is mentioned, Blackfyre stuff is not far behind. Perhaps Lys offered them better wages, or Tyrosh. No, she said. I would believe it of any other free companies, yes. Most of them would change sides for half a groat. And we're seeing that play out with Meereen. The Company of the Cat, Windblown, Second Sons, like their allegiance is that sways whichever. That's why they're the Windblown, whichever way the wind blows. Tatters wants Pentos. I would believe of any other free companies. Most would change sides for half a groat. The Golden Company is different. A brotherhood of exiles and the sons of exiles, united by the dream of Bittersteel. It's home they want, as much as gold. Lord Ironwood knows that as well as I do. Yeah, this pretty much cements that the next chapter read should be the Tyrion 2, because that's going to get a lot more Golden Company talk. So this is like a good segue for that. His forebears rode with, it's home they want, as much as gold. Lord Ironwood knows that as well as I do. His forebears rode with Bittersteel during 3 of the Blackfyre rebellions. She took Sir Arys by the hand and wove her fingers through his own. Have you ever seen the arms of House Toland of Ghost Hill? All right, before we go into the House Toland stuff, another quick history lesson. So before the Martells, before it become the Lord Paramounts of Dorne, the High Kings, the big princes, before the coming of Nymeria, Dorne's going through the same squabbles as the rest of Westeros, all these petty kings, I guess petty princes for Dorne. House Ironwood is one of the big names up there, along with the Danes and the Umbers. House Ironwood becomes they're like the second big house. I've made the comparison. The Ironwoods come across like Dornish Boltons. And when you think like the Blackfyre rebellions, a good chunk of Blackfyre support comes from Marcher Lords, people who are mad about Dorne coming into the fold and the concessions that Dorne got, that they're allowed to keep the title of prince, they're allowed to collect their own taxes, there's Dornishmen are brought into the court and all of that. But then there is also Dornish support for the Blackfyres, and that's coming from House Ironwood. And it seems to me, again, like gut feeling, until we get like a Fire and Blood Part 2 or maybe more Dunk and Egg Tales, the Ironwoods siding with the Blackfyres during the Blackfyre rebellions more than likely stems from an idea of maybe then they can become the High Lords of Dorne and overthrow the Martells in the way that other people who sided with the Blackfyres are trying to get back things that they lost during Daeron the Good's cleanup. In the same way that the Boltons side with Tywin Lannister because it allows them to get up on the Starks and now House Bolton are, for the moment, are Wardens of the North, Lord Paramounts of the North, and all of that. So yeah, Ironwood's support for Blackfyres was more than likely a was to be from direct conflict with the Martells. And that's another reason why, like, why Oberyn Martell killing Lord Ironwood and then Doran Martell sending Quentyn off to foster there is like becomes even more of a like, we need to do this. I need to heal this rift. Like, one of the things that Doran Martell is actually very quick to respond to is, I got to heal a rift with the Ironwoods because they're looking for a reason. So, have you ever seen The Arms of House Toland of Ghost Hill? He had to think a moment. A dragon eating its own tail? The dragon is time. It has no beginning and no ending. So all things come around again. Anders Ironwood is Criston Cole reborn. He whispers in my brother's ear that he should rule after my father, that it is not right for men to kneel to women, that Arianne especially is unfit to rule, being the willful wanton that she is. She tossed her hair defiantly. So your two princesses share a common cause, sir, and they share as well a knight who claims to love them both, but will not fight for them. I will. Sir Arys sank to one knee. Myrcella is the elder, and better suited to the crown. Who will defend her rights if not her Kingsguard? My sword, my life, my honor, all belong to her. And to you, my heart's delight. So, heart's delight, and then Rhaenyra, realm. You can see another good Rhaenyra connection, realm's delight. Like, yeah. I swear, no man will steal your birthright whilst I still have the strength to lift a sword. I am yours. What would you have of me? All. She knelt to kiss his lips. All, my love, my true love, my sweet love, and forever. But first, ask, and it is yours. Myrcella. And that is the end of the chapter. So, all right. So that is the Soiled Knight, the lone Arys Oakheart chapter. Because the next time we see Arys Oakheart, he is getting Arya Hota's axe, which I have named Sasha. That is now canon. I declare it so. Sasha upside the face. Yeah, and yet dangerous woman. Yeah, because she is playing him like a fiddle. Like, I just saw the life of the 40-year-old virgin, right? You know, you're putting the pussy on a pedestal, right? And that's kind of exactly what Arys Oakheart is doing. The Dornish must be immaculate, apparently. But I get it. I get it. I think you guys out there look at me and tell me with a straight face that you wouldn't simp for Arianne Martell. Not me. I simp for Babs. Yeah. So that is So this was a lot raunchier than I thought the stream was going to be when I first envisioned reading this chapter. But yeah, we spilled a lot of tea in this one. We really did. Soiled is an apt name for this chapter with all the dirt that gets drug up, because they're like, especially like even the Kingsguard Lord, it's like we're just pulling every skeleton out of everyone's closet that we can here and just putting them on full display. And then just that brain blast of like, what if Arianne threw away her virginity just to scorn her father? Like, holy shit. This is one of the great things about not being beholden to the algorithm, is that I can take these risks because I don't care if the stream gets demonetized because I'm not relying on it. Go to Dave for the symbolism. Come to me for the filth, I guess. Because that's how we can really look at it. Because I love Dave, but I will admit, sometimes sometimes I feel I put my I keep some of my thoughts, real thoughts, because I don't want to hurt his channel. and people who've watched my dreams on Steve, you know how unhinged I can be. So for the true unhinged, you have to come here, because YouTube doesn't pay my bills. That's why the super chats and the PayPals are a tip jar and not a necessity. So let me just actually check that before we go. All right, no PayPals came in, so that's fine. Just wanted to check to make sure. Didn't want to leave. If anyone had sent in a question, didn't want to leave them hanging. But yep. Yeah, that is the Soiled Knight. For the next read, we will hop back to Dance and Tyrion, and we will catch up. Yeah, we will catch up with Tyrion, Illyrio in the baggage train on the way to meet Halden Halfmaester and Raleigh Duckfield, and we will get our introductions to Fagon and John Con, and then we can read John Con's chapters and get more of all of this. But yeah, so watch Dave tomorrow. I believe he'll have Girl. I won't be there, but I believe Girl Nettles will be back for the Lannister family psychology analysis. And then I will, as for me, I'm gonna try and steer Dave to like, hey, let's get to the Queenmaker, okay? Because chronologically, it's what's next for me, as far as the Dornish plot goes. But yeah, thank you to everyone who came out. Thank you to everyone who sent in a super chat. These are always fun. I just love reading these stories and applying the voices and just talking with all of you and joking around. So yeah, have fun. Go check out Dave Lightbringer. Subscribe to Girl Nettles if you haven't. If you're gonna watch them, send them my love. I'll be at the Fillmore seeing Bad Religion and Social Distortion tomorrow. But the following Sunday, depending on what Dave wants to do, I will soon to be back with David Lightbringer, and I'll try and I will be like, hey, Queenmaker, we got to get on that. We got to get on Queenmaker. All right, so that's it for me. You all have a wonderful night, and I will see you next time. Good night.